Hi everyone, it's Zayla here. Welcome to my art journey. On today's video, I decided to do a little compilation of the basic watercolor materials that you need to get started in watercolor. And as I have been a YouTube consumer of these type of content in order to learn about watercolors, I have decided after a few years of learning and watching to do my own version of this. I do have to say the cut is not required, but it is good for some ASMR purring that will keep you company. She has been quite clingy this morning. We've been away on holidays and I've tried to move it away from the table, but she just wants to stay here. So you're also going to have her purse, which are absolutely adorable, of course. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to get started. I hope her head doesn't get too much in the way. But yes, so I have displayed a few things here, but I'm obviously going to be talking about everything step by step so it doesn't become overwhelming. So yes, I'm going to move things ever so slightly to the side. I suppose I should start with the watercolors per se, and I want to show you these two palettes that I have here. This is my old palette and this is my newest palette, and I am going to be just using them for the demonstration of this. So if I open this up, this one you can see has different pans with the colors all dried out. And then this other palette, if I can open it, also has the paint all dried out. They've been filled up with paints, but I just want to show you the differences. You can buy the paints in a format like this, just a tube, and then pour them into your palette, whether it's something like this or something like that. And then you should always let it dry before you start using it, as otherwise you would end up picking up too much pigment. So that's my recommendation. If you're using the tubes, always let them dry before and then reactivate them with your water. So you can find them in tubes, okay? Or you can also find them in this type of pans. They would come pre-made and dried out, so you don't have to do anything. And you can either buy them individually, or there are sets that come already pre-made with some colors, which not necessarily are going to be colors that you will enjoy. So for that, I will highly encourage you to always pick your own colors, whether it's professional or student grade paints. I think it's best to buy your own colors. And if you want more simplicity, you can buy the pans that are already filled, and then you don't have to do that. But I have to say, this is part of the process of watercolor, and it's something I definitely enjoy it. You know, putting them in and just curating my own palette. So two formats, like I said, tubes or pans. Take your pick. I'm gonna obviously share my preference. Like I said, I buy the tubes and then I fill up the palettes. Even when I very first started, I did that, as you get a lot more in a tube than you get in a pan, and price-wise is always better to do the tube. But if it does become a little bit overwhelming, the choice of having them pre-filled for you, it is there. And I suppose I should say a good thing about having them pre-filled is that, oh, my brain's gone. Oh yeah, if they're pre-filled, I suppose what I'm trying to say is that Mel would be more expensive, like this, but you get less of a color. So if you wanted to just test a color, then this is also a good choice, because watercolors go a long way, and a tube like this, it is about, I think it's 10 mils. I can't see it, but if I remember it correct, yeah, there's 10 mils of paint. That is quite a lot. So if you don't like a color and you've bought it, then you're kind of stuck with it. So this is a good way of having, I think these are 2.5 mils of paint, so the difference is huge obviously a pan like this, you can refill it quite a few times. So it is also good to be able to test a color without having to spend a lot of money or having a lot of paint that perhaps in the future you're not going to like. So there is the bonus of buying them pre-filled, if you're unsure. And if you wonder what colors should I buy, well, honestly, the colors that you like, I will definitely recommend to get your primaries, which are a yellow, a red, and a blue. So for me, I would say ultramarine. Then this is more of a warmer, but either of these two would be good. And then a red, which this is something that I've recently bought from my trip to Spain. So something like that, or perhaps a kind of pinkish red. So at least I would definitely get these three type of colors: a yellow, a red, and a blue, to get you started, because you can pre-mix absolutely all the colors that there are with these. But if you don't want to be doing mixtures, then what you can do is make sure you have all your primaries, and then from there you can just buy the colors that you like, that you see on the shelf, because the only way to know exactly if you're going to like a color is by using it. So even if you look at references online, you'll never get the true feeling whether you like it or not until you start using it. So if you like it on the shelf, just give it a go, and that's good enough. So don't worry too much. And if there's some type of art that you prefer to make, something more like flowers or more greenery, you can buy those colors pre-mixed already that you will like. But I definitely prefer to buy the tubes that I like by myself as opposed to the palettes that come already set up. Because when I first started with watercolors, I bought a set of, I think, 18 Codman paints, and there's been some that I've just not really touched. I do not like them. For example, this one, I don't like it, and it's just stayed there. And a purple is something I don't quite use as well, for example. So there are certain colors, or the black one, that you may not like, and then you're just going to have those tubes sitting to the side. So by choosing the colors that are calling you, when you see them on the shelf, you've already kind of ticked one of the boxes, Obviously, some colors you might not like them as they come, but you can use them to mix, and that's fine. But if you're looking to see what colors you should buy, then use your own gut. Besides getting your primaries, then use your own gut feeling, and then go with those ones that you like, creating a palette with the idea of what you're going to be painting. And yeah, so like I said, you've got tubes, and then you've got them in pans. This is something I have pre-filled myself. I do have a video on how to set up a palette like this. I will leave it link in the description for you to have a look, if you consider this option for you. It is a lot of fun, I have to say. For me, it's quite relaxing, so I totally recommend to do this. Even when I did this palette, it was also a lot of fun. So yeah, pouring them yourself, it's definitely a good thing to do. But if you're unsure, then you can buy the pre-filled pans. So yeah, these are kind of the two options. So, and in terms of a palette, this one's kind of big, but you don't really need this many. Of course, when I went to this palette, I had been painting for a couple of years. So then I kind of had an idea of which colors I liked. But these style of palettes come in a much smaller version. And I think when you buy a lot of colors, it can become quite overwhelming. So start slowly, and when you see what things are missing, start adding slowly. So that is definitely good advice. Start smaller and increase your collection slowly but surely. You can always buy this size of palette and then add the colors as you see fit, but you don't necessarily need to buy them at the start. These palettes tend to come empty without pans. Some might do, but you can buy the little pans individually. Let me see if I have any. I probably don't. I'm not sure. You buy them and they come like this, and then you can fill them up yourself. Like I said, I do have a video on how to make this palette, so I'll leave it linked below and then you can check it later. So that's all that I could say at the start for how to set up your palette and what type of palette to use, and my advice on which one I prefer, but this is just my preference. In this video I also talk about why I changed from this style of palette to this one, and just to summarize it, this is super versatile. You can move the colors around as you wish. If you don't want to use a color anymore and you buy a replacement for that type of color that's not quite the same, you can just remove the pan and put it in. You know, it's very versatile, so I quite like that I could do that with this. Like I said, this watercolor palette was filled with the Cutman colors, so there were some, like I said, I didn't like, but because they're pretty much stuck in here once you put them in. I either had to remove them from here or I just couldn't really change things about much. So that's why I decided to upgrade from this to that. But it might not be for you. And I think with time, if you get to know your colors, you might still prefer to use this style of palette. And you can definitely do so. But that's just my preference. So that's that. I'll put them to the side for now. And then I suppose we should talk about brushes. I have acquired a few different ones since I started, but I do think when you first start, you just need a round brush. This is the one that I use most of the time. It's about a couple of pounds. I bought this really, really cheap and also very good in quality. This is synthetic. You can buy them also with animal fur. I don't like that too much, so yeah, nowadays there's a lot of really good synthetic brushes that you can buy without the need of harming any animals, so I'm all for that. All my brushes are synthetic. This is a size and this holds quite a lot of water in itself, but then this one is ever so slightly bigger. This is for bigger washes, a lot looser. If you want to wet a bigger area, then this is good. So I think to begin with, I would say these two, this is a 14 and this is a size 6, is a good difference in between them. So you get a lot of details with these, but also some decent washes, and this is definitely for big washes, but it also has a fine tip. I definitely would say that you should look to make sure that the tip is as firm as possible, so that you can do details. You know, you can do a big wash, but then also you could do something finer with the tip of the brush. And then if you want it, you could buy something with a much finer tip, which I have here, but this is totally optional. These two are my go-to for most of my paintings, but definitely this one. I think it's also quite handy to have a pencil because you're going to be drawing and then perhaps painting over it. So obviously a pencil, you can have a pencil probably in a drawer somewhere in your house, but if you don't, and if you need to buy one, I think something soft as a 4B would be quite good, because when you are going to erase it, it's going to be much easier to remove any residue of the pencil. Otherwise, if it's much finer, then it kind of gets more into the paper and it's harder to remove, whereas this is quite soft, so any erasers would be able to remove as much as of the graphite if you want. And with watercolor, as it is a transparent medium, you have to try and do lighter lines underneath, otherwise it might show through, which is totally fine if they do, especially when you're starting at the beginning. But a 4B, I think it's quite decent because you can do your drawing, and then once you've finished, you can remove a little bit of the extra graphite so that it's a lighter drawing that you will be able to cover. But also, if it sees through, it's absolutely fine. Talking about erasers, my favorite since I discovered this style of eraser, it's kneaded eraser, because with this you can mold it to whatever you want. It's kind of cold now, and you can erase very, very fine details. You know, you can make it to your liking and then just do fine removal of the graphite. But if you have one like this, so a soft eraser, and you want to use it, there's no need to buy one of these. This one will leave your residue, is a standard type of eraser. This one will not, so then it makes the painting session a lot more clean, if you like, because you don't have to clean all of that residue. But this is good enough. I also still use it quite often, so there's nothing wrong on having only this one or only this one. I use both of them. But the most important thing is what you already have. If you have something like this, don't go and buy this. If you're trying to see whether you actually like watercolor or not, then keep your budget low. Same with the brushes. If you've got something at home that you've maybe used in the past when you were younger, or perhaps kids, they have some brushes, just use them. Because the best art supplies, the one you already own, especially when you're starting and you're experimenting. Really, obviously, if you do like it, in the future you'll probably find that you will have to invest in something slightly better. But honestly, anything that you have, it's far, far better than to go and spending money if you're not too sure. So I've got my erasers, a pencil. Then, of course, you'll need water. This is a jar that I have from tomato sauce. Once it was used, I removed the cover and I cleaned it properly, and it has been my water jar for as long as I can remember, really. I also have a different one here, which is slightly smaller, just wider at the top. Sometimes I'm not very good at doing this myself, but it is good to have a jar with dirty water once you're cleaning your brush, and then another one with your clean water just to do clean washes, so that your colors don't get too muddy. But you don't really need this. But like I said, these are just jars from stuff that I bought in the supermarket and then just kept it. There is no need to go and buy any fancy jars at all. And here I do keep them closed because I have my cat, and she's never really tried to drink from it, but I just worry that she would. So this is also quite handy because you can cover them up, or if you've got small children that perhaps would get up to trouble if you're just 1 millimeter away from them. This is also quite good, just to keep them covered. So that's great, and cheap. I also have the same type of jar for my brushes. You see what I mean? Don't need to buy anything fancy. This one I haven't even cleaned properly, but that's okay. It's just for me. And then onto the paper, which a lot of people would say is probably the most important thing, which I totally agree. I'm gonna go and say straight away that I recommend to use 100% cotton paper. And this is something that I have learned from trial and error, because when you don't know exactly what it is that you need to buy, you just go to the shop and whatever it's there, you get it. Definitely wouldn't recommend to use any printer paper. That's just going to ruin your experience altogether. At the very least, make sure you buy watercolor paper, which is going to be slightly thicker, and will perhaps contain the water a lot better, and you will be able to create something from it. The other option would be cellulose. It tends to be cheaper, but I will say these Meeden 100% cotton block, it's really not that expensive. I think it's about £15, and this one in particular has 20 sheets and is really, really good. I've never really spent more than £15-17 or something like that. If you buy slightly larger, this is definitely very adequate, and it's definitely not expensive. But again, you might be able to buy cellulose paper for slightly less. This is about £15. Perhaps cellulose paper with perhaps more paper, you can buy it for £10 or something like that, which might make a whole lot of difference. And if that's all you can buy, then that's absolutely fine, because you will still get a lot, especially at the very beginning. You won't notice those subtle differences. But I think for me, once I got going for a lot longer, then I just realized that the cotton paper was a must for me, but equally the best is what you can afford and what you may already have. If you know somebody that's into art and they've given you some of their supplies and that's what you have, then go for it, because the most important thing is to give it a go. So in terms of paper, the formats that I recommend, it's either a paper block or a sketchbook. I am a huge fan of a sketchbook. It's just so much fun. It is so much fun, because on the sketchbook you can contain everything and then just flip through your pages, whether you like, what you not like. Go back to do, if you've done some swatches, for example, some color mixtures, you can go back to it. You know, this is just great. I'm so in love. And this sketchbook is from Hahnemuller. It's also 100% cotton. This one in particular, it's 250 grams per square meter, so it's slightly thinner than this one, but it's great. It does have, the difference between the block and the sketchbook is that there's going to be a little bit of warping, but I think that just shows how much you've used it, how much you've loved it. So I quite like when it happens. It just adds some character to your sketchbook. You know, it's been loved. Where the difference between the sketchbook and the block is that the block will keep your paper completely flat. This is just a little project that I've been working on, just a cute turtle. It's because it's glued on all sides. This is actually the last sheet. On this one I have more. It's glued all the way. It keeps it completely flat. So this is good if you want to perhaps create more of a final piece, but also great for practicing, because if your paper is buckling, then you might find that the paint with the water will pool into some areas and it won't stay in some other areas. So this is probably the best in terms of making your life easier, so to speak, and it's, like I said, really good value for the price. But the sketchbook is just, I love it. I just absolutely love it. And these Hahnemuller sketchbooks, they've got them in various different sizes. This is the A5 version, and of course you can customize it with some stickers if you like. You know, it keeps it all in place neatly. But yeah, these two are my favorites, but I do also have some cellulose paper, which I'm going to show you right now. In the format of loose sheets and also into a sketchbook. This is cellulose paper. This is quite thick actually, but it is cellulose. So what the difference between one and the other is, I find this cellulose paper dries up a lot quicker. This one's quite big. It says here plainer sketchbook, but you know, don't listen to that. But I do use it if I just want to play around, mix some colors, or I just want to put paint in the paper. I just have it because sometimes, even though I will highly encourage you to never get too frustrated or too hang up on your painting and being too worried about making it perfect, sometimes I do that. So I just sometimes just want to play with it. You know, there's random things here that I've done, some exercises, some practices. This is with wash. You know, it is good to have something like this if you feel a little bit less precious. I can't remember how much this cost, but it's just a lot cheaper. And then the other version that you can find, the watercolor paper, is in loose sheets. This one in particular, it's not cotton. I actually bought this one for my color pencils, but you can definitely buy 100% cotton paper in loose sheets, which is also a really good option. What I do find with that is once you've finished, you have to put it somewhere. So you need your storage, which I do have, but then you're gonna have more loose sheets, because you can't keep it here. But I feel like as you start using more water, some might start tearing up, especially if you're using it and just open it up and then working on it, it will eventually start to tear off. So you can't leave it, but it might not stay. And this is really, really cheap as well, these loose sheets. So these are the options. You've got your sketchbook, you've got the block and the loose sheets, and you've got your cellulose paper and your cotton paper. Like I said, I do recommend 100% cotton, but if this is what you have, then go for it, because to get going is better than to wait, to save some money to use your watercolors. So, and then I suppose if you're using a sketchbook, I do recommend to have some of these clips, which I use all the time, just to keep your sketchbook open. This one, it kind of feels like it's in the middle, but when you first open your sketchbook, you probably find that sits like that. So if you put your clips, it's just going to help you keep it in place. And I think I just have to talk about something to dab your color. So I keep this cloth just to remove the excess paint off and water here, but you can also, if you don't have a cloth, then you can just use some paper towel from your kitchen. I do also have this one to hand because I like to use this for lifting up sometimes if I want to correct something, or if I want to create a cloud effect, or if I have intentionally painted a wash and I want just to lift up in a specific area to create a highlight, for example, then I also have this to hand. You don't need to have your cloth. I just try to do this just to make it a little bit more eco-friendly by not having to use so many sheets, but I also have them. And another thing that I should say that I absolutely love is this pipette. It's basically it's just a great little tool to add water to your paints at the start. As opposed to get your brushes all dirty and then having to wash them, I just, you squeeze it in the water and then just throw a couple of drops and then it's good to go. So I love it for the simplicity of how to reactivate your paints. So this is a great tool. Also not necessary, because you do need to use your you can use your brush, it's absolutely fine. You could just do that and then just drop the water in there. Actually it helps if I just, it just drips and that's enough. But I just like it. This is just an extra bonus thing to have, not necessarily for sure. And I suppose I've just realized I haven't talked about the type of paints that you can have. You can have student grade or professional. I think the Cotman series from Winsor & Newton are really, really good paints. Let me see. Can't remember because I haven't used them in a while. These type of paints, Cotman, they're very affordable. You can buy them in pans, you can buy them in tubes, and you can buy them in a set. I bought them in a set, like I said before, but then afterwards I did add some extra colors and I just bought them individually. These are great, they're really good price, but as I got going with my watercolor journey, I decided just to upgrade my collection to more of a professional, just because I was ready for that. But at this point, I think student grade, there's other brands that I can think of, Million, I can't think of anything else, but if you just type in Amazon or Jackson's, just depends where you are in the world, student grade watercolor paints, you will have a whole collection of them. And yeah, in terms of which ones you should buy, it's the one that comes to hand to you, the one that you like the colors. That's about it. This is a great little set of colors that they're definitely good, but just like I said, with time I found them a little bit harder to work with, and I just decided that it was time for me to upgrade and get a professional, just because I was really, really enjoying it and I could see that it was worth the investment. But I I did wait it about 2 years or so until I bought the professional one, so you know what I mean. This is definitely worth it. But if you wanted to buy professionals right from the start, what you can do is get a smaller selection of colors, see if they sell them in smaller tubes. Like I said, buy the square pans that you can, they're pre-filled and they only have about 2.5 mils of paint in it, and that will reduce the price, although the overall is more expensive. But your initial investment is to see whether you like the color and whether you're really into watercolors and you want to what am I trying to say, whether you want to continue, then is also a good way to do it, because as well as the student grade, the professional ones, you can also buy them in little pans. So yeah, definitely recommend it to do that if you want to use professional paints right from the start, but you don't want to break the bank. Buy a smaller collection, slowly build up when you can see which colors are missing in your collection, and it will just make it a bit easier, you know, if you buy a couple of pans every month or every few months, than just to buy a whole set right from the start. And it does become quite overwhelming if you buy a lot of them right at the start, so I wouldn't recommend you to buy a bigger set or more paints than maybe 8 or 10 or 12 paints at the start, because it will become overwhelming. So yeah, definitely start smaller and slowly increase your collection if you feel like this is something you're really going to enjoy. So I feel like I have covered everything. So I hope that was helpful. All I have to say is, if you've been wondering for a while whether you should try watercolor or not, I definitely think it's a great medium. It's so relaxing to paint with. Yeah, I just love it. Absolutely love it. It really has changed. It has changed me, you should say. I love it so much that I have decided to start a YouTube channel just to talk about it and just to share my experience and my art journey through the time. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything you would like to add to the things that I've talked about, I would love to hear it. If you've got any questions about anything that I've talked about, please let me know in the comments. I'm only a small channel, so I do appreciate when I get a little comment. Check all my other videos. I will leave other videos linked below, like when I swatched all my colors, so that it's helpful for you perhaps just to, if you're thinking what to buy, then I have a video with that. And yeah, stay well, keep painting, and yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.